Hi there everyone, Josiah here at Womp Creations with another show and tell for you guys. This is my Mythosaur Skull. You guys will probably, hopefully, recognize this from The Mandalorian. It's on Boba Fett's armor. This is a sort of a Mandalorian crest, but instead of doing just like an outline logo type thing that like you see on Boba Fett's armor, this is a actual, well, not an actual, but this is a prop of a actual Mythosaur skull. Now, this was 3D printed, and because it's so big, one, I don't think there was an orientation to where I could fit this whole thing on any one of my 3D printers, and two, this took up a lot of filament, which, I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, this was probably over one whole spool of filament, and I don't like having to change out a spool of filament halfway through a print. So yeah, I broke the skull up into 4 sections, and then I printed the horns separately, but the horns were printed all in one piece. So this was actually a lot of fun to paint. This was another prop that I got to just have a lot of fun with, especially because we don't so far have any reference of an actual real Mythosaur skull in any of the movies or TV shows or anything yet. So I basically just got to kind of have fun with this, and so for reference for painting, I look to a lot of like cattle skulls and like bull skulls and stuff like that. Part of that was seeing that you know, the horns typically are different shade than the rest of the skull, and I think that's just because they're actually exposed all the time. They aren't covered by skin, so they're typically a bit dirtier, and they look. There's a definite different shade to the horns in the reference pictures that I was looking at as opposed to the rest of the skull. So I replicated that with this paint job, and the way I did that was everything at first got a coat of white, and then any other color that you see on these is some form of weathering. So what I did for the horns, I started with a base coat of white, and then I went through and airbrushed a really light layer of like a brownish, a little bit of gray mix that I mixed together. And then I went through with some really light sandpaper, and I wasn't pressing down heavy, but I started sanding down just a little bit so that the high spots would go down to more of the white. And then, I mean, they still aren't white, but it created a bit of a highlight effect so that all of the recessed areas are much darker. It's almost the same effect as like a wash, except this leaves a bit more of a remnant on the high spots still. So I think those actually came out really, really well. Now for the actual main body of the skull, like I said, I started out with a coat of white, and then I went through with some different washes to get some color into these recessed areas, and then for like these darker areas, these recessed areas where you see more of a brown, I went through with an airbrush and just went through and sprayed it down, and man, this was a lot of fun to build. On the back, there are some cool details here as well. You have some of the teeth in there still from the back of the jaw. The eye sockets come all the way through, and then you have some really nice detail in here. This isn't something that you guys have seen before because it doesn't live down in the shop. This is actually up in my office upstairs, or at least it is right now. When we move, I don't know where this is going to end up, but it hangs up on the wall, and that's what this little hole is for. So, and then obviously I had to include the infamous crack in the skull that you could see on almost all of the Mythosaur Skull images. excuse me, that pop up just about everywhere. So yeah, this was just a lot of fun to make. This is definitely something that has garnered a lot of interest from, this is the first time I'm sharing it on YouTube, but this is something that garnered a lot of interest on with my followers on Instagram. So I plan one day to do a run of these skulls, and they'll probably be painted a little differently. But I am planning on doing probably a limited run of maybe 10 or so of the skull. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Let me see if I can get this back on here. With that, like I said, this lives on my wall, so I don't really have a stand to keep it up. But thank you guys for sticking around for this show and tell. I hope you guys are continuing to enjoy these videos. I'm really enjoying filming them because it kind of lets me re-examine some of the stuff that I've already done, and if I wasn't doing these, I probably wouldn't be doing that. I'm just constantly kind of moving on to the next thing. So it's actually kind of nice to be able to go back through and really examine some of these things and think about what I might do differently if I were to do it again. Thank you guys for all of your support. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.